gets rid of same-day registration. It gets rid of straight ticket voting. It shortens early voting, although we have managed to mitigate that a little bit. But when you put all these things together, there are going to be fewer poll sites, longer line to cast a vote. It's going to take about 10 times longer to cast a vote. 2.5 million people cast a straight ticket vote. That's about 10 more minutes to fill out the ballot. I calculated it's 460,000 hours that they're going to have to find some way of extra time in the polls. So what I'm afraid is it's going to have people out the door waiting in line to vote. And anything you do to make it harder for North Carolinians to vote is the wrong thing to do. An interesting fact about North Carolina, 24 years ago, we were ranked 48th in terms of public participation in elections. 48th, only 45% of people voted for president. The last presidential election, we got up to 11th in the nation. About 68% of North Carolinians voted for president. That is a fantastic thing, and it was because of a number of reforms that had been implemented, like same-day registration, like early voting, like pre-registration for teenagers. They're making it harder on every level for people to cast a vote.
Speaking with Senator Rucho just earlier about this, one of the things he was saying, largely probably because of the change that you're talking about, he was saying this will make it easier for people to vote. Will make more access. This bill, he thinks, will make there to be more access to the polls. I mean,
that is, I absolutely disagree with Senator Rucho. This will not create more access. It will create longer lines. And longer lines are never a good thing. All you have to do is look to Florida's experience and know that that was a bad thing for the people of Florida. One thing that we did do is I passed an amendment that the chamber accepted, which requires that the early vote sites stay open the same number of hours in aggregate over 10 days that there were over 17 days. But there will still be people who, for whatever reason, may not be able to vote in that 10-day window where they could have voted if they had the full 17 days. We ran an amendment on for the one election that matters the most in terms of turnout is always the president general election. We said, look, let's at least keep it for 17 days for the presidential general election. They rejected that on a party line vote. Everything about this, I counted, there's something like 20 policy changes, small and large, to the election process. Every one of them, except for one, makes it harder or will result in fewer people voting. The one that they did helps absentee balloting, which, not coincidentally, is what Republicans tend to do more than Democrats. I'm for that change because my philosophy is we should make it as easy as possible for our citizens to engage the democratic process and choose us.
You know, Eric Holder this morning said that he would use other provisions in the Voting Rights Act to chase down states making it harder for people to vote. What does this bill tee up a fight in the future between North Carolina and the federal government?
The U.S. Department of Justice has already indicated that this bill is ripe for a Voting Rights Act challenge. There are provision after provision in this bill where it will disproportionately affect African Americans. In fact, if you look at what the Supreme Court did in terms of throwing out Section 4 and the covered jurisdictions, which states does it apply, this is going to make North Carolina a poster child for why we need to be a covered jurisdiction and get pre-clearance by the Department of Justice, because this is, in provision after provision, going to make it harder for minorities to vote, but also it's going to make it harder for young people to vote, and it's going to make it harder for seniors to vote. That's terrible. And is it a coincidence that those populations tend to vote more for Democrats? I don't think so. And we shouldn't be playing games with the rules to make it harder for people to vote. Our process should have as many people as possible vote, and then we'll know who the people really want.
Thanks so much, Josh. Appreciate it. Oh.
What's the status on Sunday voting? Do you see any danger in having that applied differently in different areas?
As my understanding is, the bill does not change Sunday voting from current law. So I think that whatever the current law is, that's what we'll retain as it relates to Sunday voting.
Other questions? You good?
Was that, I mean, there was a lot of alarmism about Sunday voting. Does that mean something got taken out that wasn't in before?
There was talk about eliminating Sunday voting, which would have been a terrible thing because that's a great opportunity for people as a community to come together and vote. That provision is fortunately not in this bill, but I hate to say it is, that's about the only bad provision that's not in the bill.
What about the students, their parents being penalized if they vote in the district where they're not?
You just identified the other bad provision that's not in the bill. But they make it harder for students to vote in a number of ways. Students disproportionately do same-day registration because they're new registrants. We have a wonderful thing in North Carolina called pre-registration. When you're in high school civics class, you can actually register as a 16 or 17-year-old, and they'll mail you your card when you're 18. 50,000 kids a year take advantage. They put into practice what we teach them. They're getting rid of it. Why? Because young people tend to vote Democratic. It is atrocious. It is atrocious what they're doing.
Thanks very much. You good with that? Hey, thanks, Josh.